Hey guys, it's Rich Boy J here, back in with another video, and this is going to be Your Questions Answered, episode 21. If you don't know what Your Questions Answered is, it is simply a Q&A series that I do here on the channel. If you want to see your questions answered in the next video, just leave it in the comment section. Make sure it's Lego, Star Wars, or Lego Star Wars related, then check back next week to see if you made the cut. This episode is going to be a little bit less heavy on the questions and more of kind of a topic show, just because there's so much news that broke over the past week. I didn't get a chance to do individual videos on these topics, but I'm just going to kind of go over all of them in this video once we get through the questions. So let's start with the first question. It comes from Tipping Top Hat. He says, what are some Star Wars standalone films you would like to see, and which do you think they will make hashtag Dexter Jetster a Star Wars story? I've made no secret of the fact that my favorite or my most aspired standalone film for them to do would be a live action Clone Wars movie. I think this would give us a much better interpretation of Anakin and Obi-Wan in human form. Clone Wars does a great job with these characters, but I don't really like the direction that George Lucas took with those characters in episodes 1 through 3. So I'd like to see them kind of reimagined by maybe a little bit more of an inspired director. And I think that that would be a really cool thing for just us to see visually, you know, a lot of those elements of the Clone Wars that we've never really seen in like real tangible forms, such as like clone troopers and battle droids and just various things like that. I would love to see all that stuff reimagined in kind of today's standards of CGI and practical effects. So that would probably be my number one. If I had to just go with other ideas for standalone films though, The Old Republic would certainly be up there. Since we got the news that the upcoming live action show is not going to be based on The Old Republic, and that is something that I'm going to talk about later, then I would love to see them do some sort of Old Republic trilogy. I think that would be great. I think the possibility is still open with the Benioff and Weiss trilogy of movies that are going to be made. So fingers crossed. If not, I'd love for Rian Johnson to take a crack at it in his trilogy. So my like favorite kind of out there one would be a Clone Wars story told in live action. But if we're not going to get that, then the one that I think that is most likely to happen would be some sort of Old Republic from either of the new trilogies that they're going to be making. Next question is by BC Productions. He says, Star Wars is going to slow down a bit. What do you think of Kathleen Kennedy getting 3 more years with Star Wars? Yeah, so Bob Iger recently came out and he said that they're going to kind of slow down with, I guess, the rate at which they're either developing or producing or publishing films. And also Kathleen Kennedy got her contract renewed for 3 more years. So for the first part of that, I think that is actually a good decision. One of the things I did not want to happen with Star Wars is to become kind of desensitized to the big event feel of them. I think that Star Wars movies are an event and it should be treated as such and not just kind of pump out movies all year long, whether it be 2 or 3 being made. So I do like that they're kind of taking that approach moving forward. I do not want to see more than one Star Wars movie per year. And even I think with Solo, like Solo really felt the negative effects of being so close to a previous release of a Star Wars film. Regardless of what you think about The Last Jedi, I just think that the fact that Solo came up so quickly right after it, that it kind of made it feel a lot less special. And then like when I think about it now, it doesn't really seem like a very memorable film just because the anticipation wasn't nearly as much as what we had for Force Awakens, Rogue One, or The Last Jedi. As for Kathleen Kennedy getting a new contract, it really depends on how you feel about the state of Star Wars. If you like the direction that Star Wars is going, this is obviously a plus for you. I, for one, really do enjoy the new sequel trilogy movie, so I think that it's great that she got her contract renewed, and I'm really interested in seeing what she has to like have her input on after episode 9. It's really unclear about like where they're gonna go immediately after it. I'm hoping that they, take some time off from the big trilogy movies and do, maybe like a standalone a year. I would have no problem with that. But last thing I want to see is, more than one Star Wars movie pumped out per year, and that does seem the direction. And that does seem like the direction that they're going. So these are both good things in my mind, and I am just excited to be a Star Wars fan right now. Next question is by Commander Cody's Left Shoulder. Hey Jay, what's one thing you would change about the sequel trilogy? And from the footage we've seen of Star Wars Resistance, are there any mocks you're interested in creating? This is a great question. So first thing about the sequel trilogy, as I just stated, I'm a big fan, but if there was something that I had to change about it, I think that first and foremost, it would be no Starkiller base in episode 7. I really just think it was unnecessary. The fact that they kind of put it in and then they joke about it not really being that big of a deal because they've blown up planet killers before, it really just like pushes forward the fact like why even even put it in the film in the first place. And then the fact that it's not really even the ultimate climax of the film, I think that just shows that it wasn't necessary in the first place, right? Because in episode 4, them destroying the Death Star was like a big part of the movie, and even maybe to a lesser degree in episode 6. But in episode 7, it is really just kind of like an afterthought and just kind of like a backdrop for what happens that's really interesting, which is the Rey and Kylo fight. So that would be the first thing that I would change. Outside of that, I would really just like for them to have gone in a different direction with Finn in episode 8. I really do like the somewhat romance plot, but even if not that, like the chemistry between John Boyega and Daisy really was great in episode 7. I do understand why you maybe couldn't have them be together in this movie, just because Rey had to go off on her own journey. If Finn went with her, he would have really just like played the Chewie role and would have just kind of been around, which obviously he deserves to do a little bit more than that in the film. But the fact that they kind of got away from that and that Rose is kind of interjected into the picture, I thought that was really unnecessary. I would really much prefer for them to just have, kept Finn and Rose as just purely friends. They didn't need to play up any romance between them. And then when Finn finally sees Rey again, we can kind of go back to that subplot. I do feel that since JJ's directing episode 9, that he can still go back in that direction, but it would be kind of bizarre the fact that the Rose thing was interjected in there as a possibility and then they just kind of neglected. They should have just not had her kiss him. I really don't know why they did that. The second part of the question is about Star Wars Resistance. He says, are there any mocks you're interested in creating? So a lot of the ships look really cool. There's very colorful and obviously really conducive to making really interesting looking Lego sets. So really any of the ships I would love to do. But honestly, the thing I'm most excited to see is just the environment that they're in. They're obviously in this big spaceport in kind of a secluded area. So I mean, I don't know, it looks really cool. I would, based on depending on how much of it we see in the actual show, I could definitely see myself doing maybe a big mock of the big Resistance spaceport they're in, and then doing various scenes from the show. And I don't know, I think that would be really cool. My impression is that they're going to spend quite a bit of time there. In the most recent trailer, we did see them kind of show more of a perspective from the First Order, so they'll probably have cutaways to things that are happening outside of that, but from what I'm seeing, for the most part, the characters are going to be pretty much on that spaceport. So if it turns out being a pretty cool location, which from the trailers I think that it really does, then I could certainly see myself doing some sort of mock based on Star Wars Resistance in that aspect. Last question is by Blue Harvest Bricks. That's a great name. He says, when do you think LEGO will remake the AT-AT? I was in my dark age when the last one was on sale, and it's crazy expensive on the second-hand market. I have an interesting relationship with LEGO AT-ATs. Honestly, my favorite LEGO AT-AT is probably the first one, 4183. I think that it has the best size. It looks the most accurate to an AT-AT. That's not to say that the most recent ones are bad, but I just feel like that one just looks better, save for the fact that it's in the old gray colors. But anyways, as for when LEGO will release a new one, so I'm thinking the last AT-AT came out, and I think 2014, if I'm not mistaken, 2013 or 2014 is when that last AT-AT came out. The one before it came out in 2010, and I think the motorized one came out in around 2007, if I'm not mistaken. So with that being said, seems like we would be due for a new AT-AT sometime soon. The only thing that kind of throws a monkey wrench in that is the fact that we have so many new properties that LEGO has to make sets for next year. Obviously, the Vader's Castle thing really came out of nowhere, and also they're going to be possibly doing things for Resistance. I think they're definitely going to be doing stuff for Clone Wars, and they're obviously going to be doing stuff for Episode 9. So that does kind of make things difficult in terms of them releasing a big set like an AT-AT and not really being attached to any of the new movies. And who knows, maybe the new movie in Episode 9 may have something that looks like an AT-AT, kind of similar to where the AT-M6 fit into that wave of sets. So I think the only thing that's kind of hindering them from doing another AT-AT anytime soon is the new stuff that they're going to be making sets for. But I would almost guarantee that we'll probably get some sort of AT-AT during the downtime after the trilogy film. The AT-AT is obviously something that sells well. That's the reason that they cost so much on the aftermarket. So I could definitely see them doing it, but I don't know if it'll come anytime before Episode 9. I think after Episode 9, they'll be much more open to be doing sets like that. And that's going to finish up the questions part of this video. Now let's get into our topics. So there are a few news topics. The first one I'm going to start with is the new Vader's Castle set that was revealed. This really came out of nowhere. I work at a LEGO store, and usually the managers at the LEGO stores will have somewhat of an idea of like what if a set's going to be coming out in like the next month, and like no one had any idea that this thing was coming. So it definitely came out of left field for a lot of us. But in terms of the actual set, I really do think it's a cool looking set. I think that Vader's castle in Rogue One was one of the more interesting aspects that we saw of it, just because like I don't think anyone really expected for them to show anything like it, but the fact that we did go back to a familiar location and we got to see like where Darth Vader is just chilling out when he's not chasing after his son, like I think it's a pretty cool idea. Honestly, I'm not super excited for it though, and that's not to say that it's a bad set. It's definitely not a bad set. It's actually a very cool looking set, but it's just really not something that I feel I need for my collection. Like, I don't know, like, I'm finding it kind of hard to explain my opinion on this, but in a nutshell, it just doesn't do much for me. Like, I'm not excited to have it. If Lego never made this set, I wouldn't be upset, and I never would be like, oh my god, Lego needs to make a Vader's Castle set. I just don't think that in the films it means that much to me. With that being said, though, I'm definitely going to get the set, and I think that it'll be one of the more interesting looking Star Wars sets. Like, for anyone that collects Star Wars sets, that there's nothing really that they've made that looks anything like this before. So it'll be probably a conversation starter for most people's collections, just because it's going to stick out so much. Some of the things I am excited for with this set, though, is definitely the minifigures. I'm really interested in learning a little bit more about the blue hover tank pilot looking guy. I think they really missed an opportunity to use the helmet from the Range Trooper. The mold isn't perfect, but it's certainly closer to the hover tank trooper than the Scarab Trooper helmet is, so it's kind of annoying that they're still making that same mistake. But otherwise, I do like the way the figure looks, and the Vader and the back of tank figure is just awesome. I think that's probably the main appeal of the set, at least for me, and I can't wait to get it. One of the annoying things is that they're still continuing this trend of adding in these small ships that really just don't really amount to anything. Like, they're so useless to me. Like, why not take the small mini build out of the set, make the set cheaper, and then if you want to make the ship, make it an actual minifig scale ship. I can understand it if it's a big ship and there's just no way of making it minifig scale and you want to add it in, but like Vader's tie is something that we've gotten many times in Lego, and they can easily make it a minifig scale ship. I don't care about the mini builds. But yeah, I would love to know your guys' opinion on this set. Is this something that you're excited for? Were you hoping that Lego would make this set and they finally did, so you're happy that they, I guess, listened to us or something like that? I don't know. I would love to see like what people's general impressions on this set are. Moving on to the next topic, and this is actually going to be the last one for this week's episode, and that is The Mandalorian. Of course, this week we got the big news that the new live-action Star Wars series is going to be based on a Mandalorian after the events of episode 6, so it's going to be kind of in the New Republic era, but they're going to be in an area that isn't directly under the control of the New Republic, so we probably won't see a lot of that, which is pretty disappointing in my opinion. I think that it'd be really cool to see just like how the New Republic is ruling things, like what did they learn from the Empire, what did they not learn from. I would love to see that dynamic in the galaxy, but the fact that they're like, you know, actively going either way to say this is like outside of the reach of the New Republic, I do get the feeling that we're not going to get anything on that, which is, I feel, kind of a missed opportunity in the series. But of course, like, who knows what they're going to do in the series. They could still very well end up showing the New Republic, so who knows. But as for my opinion on the show, whenever I first saw that it was going to be called The Mandalorian, my instant reaction was to groan. I know, guys, calm down, don't get mad at me, but hear me out. I just feel that Mandalorians are something that we've seen so much in Star Wars already, whether it be back in the Old Republic or Clone Wars or even Rebels, and for them to just kind of go back in that direction, I felt was, I don't know, just uncreative, uninspired to me. Like, I feel like that's just like the ultimate fanboy reaction. Like, oh, let's make it about Mandalorians. Everyone, they look so cool. Like, let's do it. And I don't know. I'm not in love with that idea. But the more and more I read about it, I'm getting a feeling that the entire show probably won't touch a ton on Mandalorians, but rather the main characters, like, connection to it. And that, I think that can raise some interesting plot points, just because, you know, like, he's obviously not going to be on Mandalore most of the time. Like, we've seen setting pictures. We can presumably guess that like he's not going to be on Mandalore. Obviously, they will touch on some Mandalorian things, but that's not going to be the crux of the show, which is nice. I'm really just looking forward for this show to be an opportunity to tell us stories that maybe are smaller scale, that wouldn't really kind of influence the grand scheme of things, but then also to just take us places that you've never seen and meet characters that are interesting and cool. And I don't know, just give us good Star Wars stories. There can never go wrong with giving us a good Star Wars story, and the fact that it's live action is a real big plus. This is something we've been missing from Star Wars for ever, really. We've never had a live action Star Wars TV show, so I'm really looking forward to just seeing how they decide to play in the vast playground that is Star Wars lore. Let me know what you guys think about this show. Are you excited for it? We actually got our first picture of the main character today, and I think he does look really cool. I honestly would love to get a minifigure of this. I am hoping that LEGO does do sets on it. Even though, I'm not the biggest fan of Mandalorians, I won't lie, they look really freaking cool, and I would collect the minifigures of them all day long. So that's going to finish up this week's episodes, guys. I would love to know, once again, what you think about The Mandalorian. Are you excited for it? And then furthermore, if you have any questions that you want to have answered on this video series, leave in the comments section. Make sure it's LEGO Star Wars or LEGO Star Wars related, and then check back next week to see if you made the cut. Like I always say, guys, if you like what I do, go ahead and support the video by hitting the like button, support the channel by smashing that subscribe button, and I'll be back again very soon.